Menopause is the day when you haven't had a menstruation consecutively for a year. So when you haven't had a period for a year, you are then officially in menopause. So one of the biggest myths or misconceptions is that weight gain is inevitable.
Welcome to the show. I'm so excited to talk about menopause and the nutrition that goes along with it. So, before we get into the details of the nutrition, can you tell me a little bit about what is menopause and what are some of the biggest misconceptions that people have about menopause?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. And that really is such a great question because so many women, I don't understand what menopause is. It's not their fault. It's because we don't really talk about it. There's still a real lack of knowledge. Menopause is a transition, and it's a transition that every woman will go through. But it's actually in different phases. And the first phase is called perimenopause. Perimenopause, on average, is very different depending on where you live in the world. It's very individual. On average, the age of 45. And this is kind of like the beginning
It
of
starts
the
at
menopause
45.
transition. Starts around 45. It can start earlier. Some
Oh,
women can start 42, 43. They can start feeling, the odd symptom creeping in there.
I was under the impression it starts at 38, 39, but good to know.
Yeah, it can do, but that is quite uncommon. If it starts under the age of 40, then that isn't the normal transition.
Mm-hmm.
There are women that go into menopause much younger due to many different things. It can be due to surgery, having a hysterectomy, medications, cancer, all of those things where your ovaries are removed. So you obviously would go into menopause, but the natural menopause on the average age 45. And what happens in perimenopause is your hormones, predominantly estrogen and progesterone, because they're the female sex hormones. They are involved in so many other things. They really are not just sex hormones. These hormones are declining very gradually. But in perimenopause, the first stage, they kind of go all over the place. So they don't just nicely, gradually decline. It's like this mad roller coaster. Your estrogen levels can actually be quite high in perimenopause. You can be estrogen dominant. And because of all this kind of like mad roller coaster, it can trigger off the menopausal symptoms, such as, hot flashes, weight gain, irritability, brain fog, itchy skin, anxiety, mood swings. The list of symptoms is really never ending. It's very individual. You're still fertile and you're still having your periods. It's just that things are starting to shift. And this goes on, it's quite long, this transition, on average till the age of 51. Again, this is very individual. And then you go into what we call menopause. Now, this is, I think, where there's a lot of people are confused because they think, well, menopause, what's that? Menopause is the day when you haven't had a menstruation consecutively for a year. So when you haven't had a period for a year, you are then officially in menopause. And this means that your estrogen, your progesterone levels have declined considerably. You are no longer menstruating. Your ovarian function has ceased and your hormone levels are very low. And then all the time after that, we're in what we call post-menopause. Now, post-menopause is the rest of a woman's life. We're living much longer. It could be 30 plus years of a woman's life. So in summary, it's a transition, perimenopause, menopause, and then postmenopause.
So, are the symptoms in perimenopause different from the symptoms in menopause? Or it's just a lighter version of what's actually coming?
Again, it's so individual, but the majority of women find that, they'll start with the odd symptom, but most women don't think that it's anything to do with menopause. They'll put it down to lifestyle, stress, just daily life. The symptoms, some women glide through, don't have any symptoms. Some women really suffer. As you go through perimenopause into menopause, you can still be having these symptoms because the symptoms are triggered by the lack of hormones in menopause. And post-menopause, they gradually will fade out as time goes by. But in saying that, I have clients. I had a lady that was 75 years old the other day that was still having hot flashes. So
that's like 25 years later.
Yeah. because you haven't got your hormones unless you take hormone replacement therapy. So, it is very individual. Some people just glide through. Sometimes the symptoms just kind of tailor off as you come into the postmenopause. It's a bit like your body has to recalibrate and kind of get used to not having these hormones anymore.
So, we've now covered what is menopause, what is perimenopause. What is the biggest misconception that people have about menopause that you've seen in your clients?
One of the biggest myths or misconceptions is that weight gain is inevitable. I work with a lot of clients for weight management, but women kind of think this is just part of the menopause transition. It's a part of aging. I'm going to put weight on and there's nothing I can do about it. That is not true. There are a lot of metabolic shifts going on that can cause, particularly around the belly area,
It's called the
an
menopause
increase in
middle.
fat. Yeah.
That was actually going to be my next question. Like, we hear about the menopause middle where there's lots of fat stored in the belly area. Now, talking about nutrition, is there some kind of foods that women can have to kind of reverse that or not let their body go through that?
When you talk about nutrition in menopause, you have to work on blood sugar balance. You have to look after yourself better, basically. You can't get away with what you did when you were in your 20s and 30s. And even if you think you can, I can assure you, you can't, because it all just kind of creeps up on you. And when we're talking about nutrition, we want to be eating whole foods. We want blood sugar balance. We don't want to be eating these refined carbohydrates that are high in sugar, because they're very easily absorbed into the system. They shoot your blood sugar up, and your body doesn't like that. So it sends out a hormone called insulin, which helps in blood sugar regulation. It really opens the cell up and allows the glucose to go into the cell and be utilized. But what can happen in menopause is, due to all the metabolic changes, that your body doesn't react to insulin anymore. So it's kind of like the key to open up the cell doesn't really work like it used to. And that is what is called insulin resistance. And we see that so much more in women, in the menopause transition, that our blood sugar levels are harder to balance. And if you've got high blood sugar, that is detrimental for many aspects of health, but you will store fat around the belly area. So looking at what you're eating protein. We don't tend to eat enough protein as women, even more important as we age, for muscle mass, for satiety, for blood sugar balance. You really need like a palm size of protein with every meal. So protein, things like chicken, fish, if you don't eat animal products, nuts and seeds, soya, beans, all of those sort of things. But a good portion of protein with every meal. Then we need healthy fats. We don't have to be scared of fat. I know that the era that I grew up in, fat was like nobody ate fat. It was just, everything was just carbohydrates.
Mm-hmm.
And that we need healthy fats for hormone production, for blood sugar balance, for satiety, all of those things we need healthy fats. Olive oil, for example, is a wonderful, wonderful fat. Butter, nuts and seeds, avocados.
Cheese,
yes, absolutely. Those whole products, nothing that's been processed. And then we also need fibre, very important for women, because we want to be able to eliminate things. We want to keep our gut system going. We want to eliminate estrogens through the detoxification pathway, making it easy for women during menopause, and looking at, like we're talking about, the belly fat, avoiding ultra processed foods, going back to basics and just eating in balance. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that. Making sure that you're managing stress. Now, stress is, even though it's not so related to nutrition, however, if you are chronically stressed, you will find it virtually impossible to lose weight because of cortisol, which is the stress hormone, and cortisol stores fat. So if you're constantly stressed, even if you're really thinking about what you're eating, it is very difficult to lose weight. So all of these things kind of add up and creep up on you as you age as a woman. And that's when you can find that you get the belly fat.
If there's one food or drink that you would recommend completely eliminating from our diet during menopause or perimenopause, what would that be? That's the most harmful.
What is sugar?
Sugar, any
That's not
kind.
really a food or a drink. So it's quite
Yeah.
what things like fizzy drinks, all of the fizzy Coca-Cola, all of those drinks are just laden with sugar. Remove that from your diet. Drink water, drink soft drinks. Just reducing sugar in general is so beneficial for health. Sugar doesn't have any nutritional value. We don't need sugar. It causes inflammation in the body. It's shown in research for menopausal women as well that if we have a high sugar diet, it makes menopausal symptoms worse, particularly like hot flashes. So cutting sugar out, cutting the desserts out in the evenings after dinner. There's always other things that you can eat that's still delicious, but really reducing sugar. And if I can say another thing, unfortunately, alcohol is not the friend of a menopausal woman. And so many of my clients and friends now that we all like at the odd glass of wine just don't drink anymore because they say it's just not worth how it makes me feel. Your body can't break down, or the enzyme that you need to break down alcohol it doesn't work the same as it used to due to menopause and the aging process. So there is reasons behind it. But even after one glass of wine, it affects your sleep. You feel tired the next day. You get cravings because you're tired. You want carbohydrates. So it's a knock-on effect. So I would say sugar and definitely alcohol.
Speaking of sleep and hot flashes, a lot of women kind of turn insomniacs. They cannot sleep, they have hot flashes, they wake up with sweaty clothes. Apart from changing your nutrition, is this also due to a lack of some kind of vitamin in your body, or is there another vitamin that we can take before we start changing our nutritional habits, like magnesium, B12?
Yeah, for sleep, one of the wonderful minerals is magnesium glycinate.
Glycinate. Okay.
That can be very beneficial for women because it's very, very calming. If you take that 30 minutes before you, or an hour before you go to bed, that can, because it just relaxes everything. But sleep is so multifactorial. You really have to look at the person and really see what's going on. But we need progesterone for sleep, or it can affect our production of melatonin when we go into menopause. Most women in menopause wake up 2-3 o'clock in the morning, wide awake, and they just can't go back to sleep. And it's soul destroying, isn't it, if you can't sleep? Hormone replacement therapy has been shown to help with sleep if that is an area that women want to look at. But it's really looking at your whole sleep routine. Another very nice thing that works is Epsom salt baths, because Epsom salt is rich in magnesium, and you can just buy them. They're very easy to get
Easily
hold of,
available.
and if you soak in that in the bath in the evenings, that can be very beneficial for really calming the body down. There was a new study that came out quite recently saying how detrimental lack of sleep is for perimenopausal and menopausal women. It was really looking at how the emotional and the mental health aspect of lack of sleep was. It's not just one of the symptoms of menopause. It's really, really detrimental to health. So any woman that is having problems sleeping, please don't just accept it. Go and ask for help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's helpful. You mentioned HRT, hormone replacement therapy, and I've heard that a lot of women during their menopausal years, they tend to do this mostly to protect their bone health and avoid getting osteoporosis. Does the HRT just help in the bone health, or it helps in other aspects also? And is this something that the person needs to do their entire life?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a doctor. So
Yeah.
obviously, anybody that wants to talk about HRT should talk to their healthcare provider. But in answer to your question, in research, yes, bone health, it's good for heart health, for your circulatory system. Again, that is affected by the decline in estrogen. So it helps with heart health. There is research going on at the moment. There's not enough that we can actually say this, but it may help with cognitive decline for brain health, because basically the whole body, we've got estrogen and progesterone receptors over the whole body. And, what is a hormone? It's a messenger. So that messenger comes out into the circulatory system, we say in the brain. And these estrogen receptors are there waiting for the hormone to lock in, and it doesn't arrive because you're not producing that anymore. So it's not so strange that we get these symptoms like lack of focus, brain fog, forgetting things. So with hormone replacement therapy, it just tops your hormones up, and it's been shown to help in the relief of menopausal symptoms. When you're going through that, feeling terrible, and you've got all these symptoms, hormone replacement therapy can, not for all women, but it can be very beneficial if that's something that you want to look at. But it's still quite a controversial subject. It's getting better. And I actually saw, I think it was today, that in the US that they've taken the warning off, the black box warning off the hormone replacement therapy now, because they've realized that that maybe was incorrect, and it is something that can be very beneficial for women.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. I understand this is more of a medical question, but I appreciate you answering that. Speaking of sex life, I've heard that women, when they're going through this phase, they experience low libido. They do not have any needs, urges. It's kind of a very low phase in their life. Are there any kinds of foods that they can add to their diet which may help them to feel better about that?
Yeah, you want to. It is very common, and again, it's due to the decline in hormones, and also a hormone that we haven't spoken about is testosterone. That isn't to do with the menopause transition, but that is a hormone that naturally declines as we age, and testosterone is needed for libido, amongst other things, and also to keep us strong and for brain health. But some nutrition that you can think of, again, you want to be getting rid of sugar. You want to be getting rid of processed foods, because they cause inflammation in the body. They make you feel sluggish. They make you feel tired. They don't make you feel like you want to be intimate with your partner. Another thing I would say is have a blood panel done to check your nutrient levels, because you could be deficient in certain things like vitamin D, for example. That can have an effect on libido. And all iron levels, particularly in perimenopause, when you can bleed quite heavily when you're menstruating. So looking at iron levels, looking at your nutrient levels to actually see what do they look like. Am I deficient in that and this? Because that can have an effect on your overall well-being, but also your libido. And just eating whole foods, lots of vegetables, lots of colour, giving you that variety in your diet can really give you that energy and that boost.
So, speaking of iron levels, women who have anemia or thalassemia, they anyway to begin with have very low iron levels. Is menopause or perimenopause way worse for them? And what is it that they can do in terms of diet changes to have a smooth transition into this phase of their life?
It can be, because when you come into perimenopause, because of all the hormonal swings, it can give you very heavy periods. So if you're already suffering from anemia or have low iron levels, and you find that your menstruation is even heavier than it was before, then obviously I would recommend that you go and see a doctor first. But what you can do nutritionally is making sure that you're eating enough iron in your diet. And women in general, we do tend to have quite low iron levels because of the fact that we have monthly menstruation. Things that have got iron in, if you eat animal products, I mean, the best form of iron is meat, is red meat, because it's very bioavailable for the body. It can take that up very easily and utilize it. Things, liver. Not many people eat offal anymore, do they? But liver is actually virtually a superfood. It's got so many good nutrients in it. If you don't eat animal products, then it can be slightly trickier to get enough iron. if we take spinach as an example, which does contain iron, but it's difficult for your body to absorb that. You need to eat a lot of spinach to get the equivalent amount of iron that you would get from a piece of meat. But what you can do with iron nutrients, your food that you're eating with iron in, if you eat it alongside vitamin C, it's easier for your body to absorb it. So having some citrus fruits after you've eaten a piece of meat. So combining those two things really helps your body utilize the iron and absorb it a lot more. But if you don't eat animal products, you really have to be quite mindful that you are getting enough iron, and you maybe would need to supplement.
That makes sense. A lot of women, again, also complain about joint pain or muscle aches during this phase. Is that related to changes in the hormones? And do you have any suggestions for any kind of anti-inflammatory foods that can help with reduction in this kind of pain?
Yes, that's very common. Joint pains, just aches and pains, they kind of creep up on you.
A lot of knee replacement surgeries as well at this time. I've seen.
Yeah, estrogen has an anti-inflammatory effect, and also, we can't blame everything on menopause. We are aging. The natural aging process is also there. And we found that collagen, which we have in all our ligaments and everything, start breaking down. So what you want to think with nutrition is eating what we call more of an anti-inflammatory diet. So there's as much colour as possible that you can get on your plate. Because all of these fruits and vegetables that have, that red, yellow, orange, they contain all these amazing phytonutrients that really help with inflammation. And as far as collagen goes, eating things like animal products, bone broth is a wonderful form of collagen. And then you could look at collagen supplementation, but just make sure that you get a good quality product if you're going to be taking collagen supplements, because there's just such a huge array at the moment of products on the market.
When I walk into a pharmacy and I'm looking at the supplements and the vitamins aisle, I get very overwhelmed. Are there few vitamins or supplements that you absolutely recommend to someone who's above 35 and is soon going to approach the menopausal age? And also for people who are already there, like few vitamins that they absolutely must try and take, of course, after discussing with their doctor.
Yeah, it is. It is very individual. I do with clients, I always test first just to really see what the levels are doing. But it does depend on where you live in the world. I live in Northern Europe, where it's obviously darker now in the winter months, is vitamin D. If you live in a really sunny climate and you're outside and you're getting enough sunlight, then maybe you don't need to supplement vitamin D. But when you live in the darker parts of the world, you do, because your body produces vitamin D through sunlight. And it's actually quite difficult to get from food. There aren't that many foods that contain enough vitamin D. And that is a very important vitamin for everybody, not just for women in menopause. But that is maybe something people should think about supplementing depending on where you live in the world. And then fatty acids. I've been researching a bit on like brain health, and there's so much interesting research coming out about how important omega-3 fatty acids are for brain health, amongst other things. Talking about joints, if you're getting pains in your joints, it's hard to get enough through eating food. Fatty fish is a great source of omega-3, but you've got that backside really of fatty fish, is that we don't recommend as a nutritionist that you eat fatty fish more than twice a week because of all the heavy metals in it that our oceans are polluted, unfortunately. So we don't want, it's got higher levels of metals in. So that could be something to look at, to supplement. But a good way to start is to look at just taking a really nice high quality multivitamin. Because that covers you, for all the different nutrients. Because unfortunately, in a lot of parts of the world, the soils are depleted. So even if you're eating a very good whole foods based diet, the vegetables and the fruits and everything that we grow and the grains, they don't have the nutrients in that they had like 30, 40 years ago, because we've just totally depleted them. So a good multivitamin is a good way to start. And then maybe like a collagen supplement, B vitamins as well. They're something that a lot of menopausal women find that they can help, particularly with cognition. If you're a vegan or vegetarian, B12 can be quite difficult to get from just plant-based products. So that if you don't eat animal products, you do need to be quite mindful that you are getting all the nutrients. And it can be done, absolutely, but you just have to put a little bit more effort in.
Okay. What about soy and phytoestrogens? Is that's what it's called? Flaxseed, soy. Are these safe to have? Because I've read mixed reviews.
Yes, the phytoestrogens, as they're called, have a similar chemical structure to estrogen, but they're not estrogen. They have a very weak effect, like estrogen in the body. When you look at all the research, they are really beneficial. I mean, obviously, you're not going to be eating them in huge amounts. I mean, how many flax seeds do you eat a day? You're going to be having maybe 2 tablespoons of flax seeds, and they have a wonderful effect. They really help because they've got a lot of fibre in as well. They've got the phytoestrogens. Phytoestrogens have been shown to help with menopausal symptoms, and berries have phytoestrogens in. They're a wonderful thing, and soya, as you said, is very, very beneficial to our health as women.
Okay. Well,
good
Alison,
quality soya. Sorry, I just have to say that it has to be good sourced from, because there's some genetically modified. It's all about quality as well, making sure that you find a good quality soya.
Yeah. So, Alison, to end things, one food that we should try to include in our diet, what would that be?
Well, it would be phytoestrogens.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. As a menopausal woman, just adding in, whether it's flax seeds or just sprinkling seeds onto your breakfast or your yogurt or whatever, because particularly flax seeds are very beneficial for women to get in those phytoestrogens. So yeah, I think that's probably what I would recommend.
Is there one piece of advice that you would like to give women who are listening to you?
I would just like to say, don't suffer in silence. The menopause we're starting to talk about menopause a lot more now, depending on where you live in the world. But please, because my heart goes out to women that really are going through this alone, they've got no one to talk to. Please reach out and talk about how you're feeling, because there are so many things that you can do. You really, really don't have to go through this alone. Reach out and get the help that you need. Even if you just talk to a friend about it initially, but please don't suffer in silence.
Well, thank you so much for your expertise and for, handling these really tough questions head on. I've had such a wonderful time talking to you today. Where can our listeners reach you?
The best place to reach me is on my website, which is Alison Bladh. That's BLADH.com. And on there's loads of free downloads and recipes. And there is also my book page on my website. I launched a book in August this year. Have a Magnificent Menopause. It's very pink. A straightforward guide to looking good and feeling great, because I am actually an esthetician as well. So this is looking at also the skin, but it's it's got everything you need to know about menopause. And you can get that on my website. I'm all social media. If you just look for Alison Bladh, you'll find me virtually everywhere.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
It's a pleasure. Lovely talking to you.
Likewise.